Hey folks, my name is Steve Danna, and I'm sorry I can't be at the meeting today, but I am recording my piece so that I can share what we've been doing with the Third Act Upstate New York Storytelling Subcommittee. Real quickly, we are a team of three, myself, Kim Knowlton, and Ann Lowenthal. And we began working in March. And we've already done a series of trainings, workshops on how to design a story to tell others. And originally it was planned to be a train the trainer round of sessions, but we learned that there's a lot more work than 1 hour can cover. So we will return to that in the fall. But the reason we pursued this storytelling initiative is because people don't tell stories. The Yale Climate 2024 opinion survey found that though 65% of people are concerned or very concerned about climate change, less than 37% actually talk about climate change with others. So people don't talk about what's happening around them. Just this week, we've had all these horrific floods going on. I mean, there are stories to tell, and we need to be telling them. 90 million people did not vote in the 2024 election. So, by telling stories, we can educate, inform, energize, and empower action, which is why we do this work. Um, so, I've just taken some notes. We did a lot of research and we ultimately came up with what we call the four pillar tool. And so, I'm going to describe that tool. But I do want to share a couple of key points about storytelling that I've learned and my colleagues have learned while we've been working on this. One, there needs to be hope. As dire as climate change can be, appears to be, and the projections are, we have to leave people with a sense of hope. Secondly, there needs to be emotion. We need to convey emotions in our story. Right? People connect with storytellers who can elicit their emotions and inspire others. So, hope, emotions. The third thing is to leave people with the sense of doable actions, right? Because every story needs to conclude with your vision and the ask. Like, what is it that I want you to do? Well, I want you to call your senator. I want you to speak at Rotary. I want you to talk about your story at Thanksgiving giving dinner. Whatever it may be, we need to tell those stories, and the ask has to be doable, has to be realistic, and it needs to be brief. Like I'm going to really try not to talk too long because no one wants to really hear me talk very long, right? So 3 to 5 minutes max. All right, that's what a story should be. And just a little note, let's not let perfect get in the way of good, right? It doesn't have to be perfect because a lot of people are really hesitant to write their stories, to tell their stories because, well, I'm not a storyteller. I mean, no one wants to listen to me. Well, actually, people do want to listen to us. But we just want to keep that in mind. All right, enough talking. Let me find the tool that we have come up with, and I'm going to have to put this on pause because I don't have it just yet. So, okay, hey there, here we are back. So let me share the four pillars tool. This is something we stole. We got this from Citizen Action of New York. Erica Vladimir had a really nice conversation with her, and we made a few adjustments to it, but this is their tool. Let me enlarge this so you can all see it. And so there are four pillars to the work, right? The first is name your values. Who are you? What do you believe? What's driving you to do this work? So, as an example, for me, in my story, which is a work in progress, um, I'm a former scientist with the government, NOAA, and the Navy, who then became an educator. And I learned early on about climate change and the risks of that issue. I also learned the power of stories when I taught and how kids, children, students really engaged when the storytelling happened. So the first piece of the story is to name your values, who you are, real briefly, and what you value. Then the second thing is to identify the conflict. What is the conflict with your values? For me, in my story, the conflict is the fact that the IRA, the work that happened under the Biden administration, that work and others prior to it, with all the tax credits and incentives to put clean energy in the forefront, to put it on our homes, to buy the vehicles that run on clean energy, um, those are being removed by our present administration. And that is a real barrier to what we need to achieve if we're going to keep our temperature increases within reasonable numbers. So the second thing is to name the conflict. The third pillar, tell your story. The story that ties in the conflict with your values, et cetera, et cetera. For me, my story is that about 10 years ago, my wife and I decided that we wanted to basically put solar panels on our house, and we also wanted to go with a geothermal system so that our home would be fully electrified. And we did that. It was expensive. I took a home equity line of credit, but I also got a 30% tax credit. And because of that, I could afford to do those two things. And I've saved a ton of money in the years since. And most importantly, I'm not releasing carbon through those actions. And also, I live in the Adirondacks. There are a lot of Republicans. This is Stefanik country. I mean, this is heavy Republican country. That said, there's a lot of solar panels up here because you know what? Everyone wants to save money. Everyone values clean air. So those tax incentives work for everyone. So the third pillar is tell your story, identify the conflict with your values, et cetera, et cetera. My story was the solar panels and the geosystem. And the last one, the last pillar is a vision and call to action. My vision is that these incentives, these credits, these resources, these policies are going to be everywhere. Whether it's a carbon tax or carbon credits or whatever it may be, there's going to be incentives, there will be resources so that people can use clean energy to get around, to power their homes, to heat their homes, to cool their homes, et cetera, et cetera. And the ask is that we all talk with others about the benefits of these different credits, about the benefits of clean energy. And we do so whether we're sitting at a Thanksgiving dinner, whether we're working or communicating with a lobbyist, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. That's the four pillar model. So let's talk about how we can use that model. Joe Shedd had talked about intergenerational communications, like an interview where you could tell your story to a grandchild or to some young individual at a setting, maybe a Sunday event. And through an intergenerational conversation, you could share your values, who you are. You could share the conflict with those values. You could tell your story, and then you could give the ask, right? So those intergenerational communications would be very powerful. You could leave the last part of the pillar, the ask, and say, what should we do about that? And actually have groups of children, young adults, teenagers strategize things that they can do. You could flip the tables and interview the youngster and say, well, what do you believe? What's your values? Why are you concerned about this? What's the conflict? So again, there are so many different things you can do with the four pillar model. And to kind of close it out, we like this model, we being the subcommittee, because it's easy. It's easy to remember. And that's always good at our age. Secondly, it follows the structure of a story, right? There's conflict, there's emotion, there's body to the story. And you don't have to be um, Ernest Hemingway or a great writer to tell a good story. And you can use that story and repackage it over and over and over again. But Catherine Hayhoe always says we need to have conversations. So we need to do this. So real quickly, these are things that you need to remember when you work on your story. There's got to be hope. You got to throw in the emotions. The actions have to be doable, and they need to be brief. And I hope I didn't talk too long. I'm sorry I didn't make the meeting, but it's in my calendar for future meetings. And with that, I'll say ciao. Bye.